Hey everyone, Will here, bringing you the review for Aliens Genocide number 2. Sorry, it's been a while. I had some personal things going on and unfortunately just wasn't able to make a video. I am hoping to eventually get this to at least every 2 weeks. Eventually, hopefully every week. But for right now, I'm probably just going to continue to be sporadic and I apologize for that. But anyways, on to the review. So, I'm not going to say I didn't care for this one. It was just kind of slow. There wasn't a whole lot actually happening. It was more just world building than anything within the human race. Um, Basically, it just takes place on the ship heading to the Xenomorphs planet, and kind of the goings on with the Marines and the CEO, or as I'll refer to him now, Mr. Grant, or just Grant, um, and the things going on with his company, or the shady things that company is doing. But it starts off with Grant coming out of cryo to see an alien right in front of him. Of course, freaks out. Turns out that it's just a hologram, though, that Major Lee has set up to scare him. And that kind of sets the tone for how the relationship is going to be through this comic, at least. She kind of laughs at him and, makes fun of him, and he gets all pissy and storms off. He's then going to find the really he happens to find the really big guy, who's actually Corporal Henriksen. Basically tries to get him to say some bad things about the major, which he refuses to do. He's basically like, yeah, she's a really good major and she really takes care of all of us. And he just kind of gives up at that point. From there, it kind of just jumps across the ship, showing some interactions, like I said, with the Marines. They're in Chow Hall, um, seeing kind of some of the stuff that they're doing and their day to day. You also see that they are taking Xenozip, and it's definitely like a drug to them. They use it as bets to basically be like, well, I'll give you some of this if this happens, whatever. But they actually see Corporal Henriksen going through the Chow line, and I guess they think he's a android. And there's these two that are talking, and basically like, yeah, he never eats with us, he never showers in front of us, he has to be one. And the other guy's like, well, I mean, they make models that eat now, so I really don't think that's it. But they, just keep talking crap about him, and he ends up hearing him and takes the one guy and throws him up against the wall and is basically like, say that shit to my face, which of course he really doesn't. They try to get him to take Xenozip, and he just smacks it out of their hand because they're like, oh, I'll take the edge off, it'll calm me down. Smacks it out of their hand, and from there it de-escalates. Grant actually shows up and it's like, hey, it's not worth it, just let him go. The major comes in at this point. It's like, hey, that's kind of my job. And he's like, oh well. And now he's trying to kiss up to her. Basically, he's like, oh, I was just trying to help out, but I want to show you something. And they end up going into an area of the ship that the Marines don't know about. They think it's just storage. And they go in, and it's actually a lab is set up within the ship. The scientists are there working. The Marines are all kind of taken aback by the, like, this isn't supposed to be here, we don't know about this, what's going on. He's like, oh well, I just want to show you. And it turns out they've been cloning humans to be hosts for the xenomorphs. And they're not even like complete humans. It's basically just like a torso and, like just half limbs. There's no head or anything. And one of the scientists is like, hey, check this out, it's about to start. And the alien bursts out, and the Marines are like, what the fuck? What's going on? It's like, well, it's just to make our job easier in the future. Who's to say that we're going to get all the royal jelly we need? So if we can hatch a queen, essentially, or make a queen, because they're actually talking about just surrounding it with royal jelly, which would then make it a queen, they would never have to do these type of expeditions again. Of course, the major isn't real keen on that idea. Even if it's a clone, it's still breeding xenomorphs and that type of thing. So she's not really thrilled, and especially with it on the ship. They end up, you know, leaving, and some other stuff happens within the ship. Um, at one point, the Grant approaches the major again and is like, "Hey, sorry about that. I guess I should have been a little more forward with it." And then, of course, the major is still just not very happy. Um, and we actually see at this point a shadowy figure approaching where the xenomorph is and shoots it, kills it, you know, whatever, and the acid starts to melt through the hole, like acid does, and alarms start going off. They all run to where it is because it says that it's in this area, which is right below where the lab was. They all go in. One of the scientists is there. He's like, "Oh, it was just a baby," and Grant's really pissed off about it. And they see the gun's actually still there that was used. And it's like, is this one of your Marines' guns? And he's like, "Well, there's one missing, but it's not. None of my Marines have checked it out, um, or it doesn't belong to any of them. They really don't know what is happening at this point." The acid stops melting through the hole. Everything's fine. Obviously, Grant's really pissed off because the cloning was basically for nothing at this point. Nothing's really figured out as to who it was that did it. Then they arrive at the planet. It's all happening very quickly at this point. They arrive at the planet, get ready to go. And then there's this one guy that shows up that's, you know, kind of just been in the background the entire time. Looks really shady, to say the least. Everybody's boarding the ship that's going to be going down to the planet. And it's like, "Well, you're not on a list." And he's like, "Oh, well, I'm here to take over for the scientist," the one that was like, "Oh, my baby, it was just a baby." Like he was in no shape for this mission, so I'm taking his spot. Okay, and just let him on. Uh, the soldier that tried to give Henriksen the Xenozip was disciplined, so they actually took his Xenozip away. And apparently he's on edge, which again furthers like it's kind of an addictive drug at this point. They end up, you know, doing the drop, and they're flying down to the planet, and they're getting readings, and they're saying that it's kind of weird, and they're like, "Well, why is it weird? Like, what is it?" And it's like, "Well, the best way I can describe it is there's a war going on." And the final panel is actually showing, you know, the two species of aliens that we saw in the first issue fighting, and that's where it ends. So definitely a cliffhanger-ish ending. Um, like I said, though, I wasn't entirely, you know, entertained by this one. It was definitely more of a world building issue, and I get that's probably something to do with, you know, the fact that it's just 4 issues. They wanted to get a lot of the background explained. I still think the idea is really cool, and I am definitely looking forward to issue number 3. But unfortunately, that's just kind of my review. It's like, it was just a world building one. Like it wasn't bad, it wasn't great. It just, I would say, wasn't super entertaining, for me at least. So I am looking forward to getting into number 3 and seeing where that goes, because obviously now they're on the planet, they're going to be dealing with 2 warring alien species, and they're in the middle of it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from here. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up here. Like I said, I'm hoping that I'll be able to get these out in a more consistent schedule. Hopefully it won't be as long of a gap next time or in the next video. But until then, I'll talk to you all later. All right, bye.